All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr. Reaction Tuesday night's games in SEC basketball. Got a lot of happy fans in here, I think, right now. Maybe not so for a couple teams, but the Dogs are checking in. The Georgia Bulldog fans hopping in. Missouri fans hopping in after a 30-point win. Alabama fans hopping in after I don't even know what to call that. But, yeah. So, Tennessee, Max, we said might be a little close at LSU. Wound up being a little close.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, listen, yesterday, you and I, we came into this not knowing either one of us were going to say this, but we're like, we got a weird feeling about these midweek games this week. Something about them, the setup. I don't know. There's just something about these midweek games. And what do you know? The very first one gives us a wild result in Georgia, knocking off Florida. And Zach, the streak continues. $5 super chat. All caps. Georgia, the Bulldogs, getting the win, Max. Talk about just a roller coaster of a game. I mean, listen, if any of us would have had any scenario where Georgia's up 26, 12 minutes into the game, I don't know what we would have thought have happened at that point. But they were 39-13 with 7 minutes and 53 seconds left in the first half. Like, that is just something none of us could have expected. And then it's like, even at that point, Max, I'm going to be honest with you. Even at that point, I'm sitting here thinking, Florida is going to have a chance to win this game. And I know it sounds wild, but I told you guys, I said the Florida bet is in. I'm like, it's just, you knew Florida was going to make a run. And they made their run. They get the lead. Where they hit the shot. They go up 80-78 with a minute, 10 seconds to go. And then Blue Cain knocks down the three-point shot. And from there, the Dogs get a huge, huge win.
Not Chris Cain, Blue Cain.
Blue.
Either way, he's Robert knows his boy Blue. That was biggest shot of his life, probably right there. You had all the feeling, and Twitter was fantastic during this. By the way, I mean the whole nation really. Regardless of what conference you cover, or if you're national, if you're SEC only, everyone was talking. Oh no, Georgia! Oh no, there's no way this is gonna. There's no way that what I'm seeing right now is happening. And then Blue Cain just says to thousands of posts in the previous 5 minutes, "Ha! You guys thought we were gonna let this one slip away. Not so fast." Great set, by the way. I know some people were complaining about a possible moving screen there on Godfrey. You're never gonna get that call ever.
No.
It's never gonna be called a moving screen. Great, probably just last few possessions there by Georgia after Florida comes storming back. You knew they were going to come back. You knew they were. They were down I'm not quite sure what the exact, 51-35 at halftime, and the live spread was 8 points. So Vegas knew, Florida's going to come back with a push, but Georgia could have just saved their entire season with that win right there.
When I checked the number when Florida was down, again, 20 whatever, and I'm looking at the live betting numbers on this, and I'm still seeing like Florida, like it was, I don't even remember what the number was once it got to 26, but at halftime is when I checked it. I was like, oh boy, it's still like 7.5. I'm like, that's a lot to me. Like for Florida, like I know they're going to make this a game. And again, that's where like Will Richard goes off, scores 30 points in this game. It just seemed like every single time, like Florida started making that run, Will Richard, big shot, big shot, big shot, big shot. And, Clayton got his in 18 and such. But, everyone else, the percentages were not as high as maybe we used to with some of these other guys. But then if there is a reason for Florida, and don't worry, we're going to talk about the Georgia side of this. But for Florida, I mean, you have yourself to blame here. First of all, you can't get down 26 on the road in the SEC. and put yourself in a position where you're like, all right, we're just going to play around for a bit and then we'll go win the game. They almost did, but you just, again, like you can't do that. Like that just makes the game so much tougher, throws you out of your game plan a bit, and you also can't miss 11 free throws. And so they go 18 to 29 from the line, and I'm like, if there is one thing we can pick apart with Florida offensively, it's that they're not a great free throw shooting team. And so, those kind of things matter when you get into a tournament setting where you expect games to be close. You lose by 5, you miss 11 free throws, right? It's like, do the math. I mean, that's significant. But I mean, it's a tale of two halves, like we said. But the biggest part of this is that for once, Max, like you felt like Georgia was in a position where you were pretty confident that they were going to get what they wanted offensively as long as they didn't turn the ball over. And that became an issue down the stretch where they're just throwing some passes where I'm like, what is going on here? Like some of these turnovers are just completely unforced. And yet, like we said, they found a way, and that's all you can ask this time of year. It does not matter, that Florida came back and got the lead for whatever. All that matters is Georgia won the game because that's what we said. Georgia had to find wins. This was the biggest opportunity left on their schedule. And depending on who you believe, as we said, they were in the next 4 out range coming into the game. If you're looking at Lenardi's bracket, and I would say other people, don't just blame Lenardi for this. Like a lot of people had them further away from that in line. Now, I think Lenardi said last night that he moved him up. I want to say they're like the 3rd team out now, number 71 in his bracket. So still not enough to put them in because they had played their way a little further out. But, man, that is one where if they can just find a way to win some of these games here, at Texas, at South Carolina, home against Vanderbilt, going to be easier said than done. But just build off this, right? Win a couple more games, you're in the tournament.
Yeah. How about Silas Demary? Really playing well, getting better throughout the season. Had a lot of expectation on his back coming into the year, leading the youngest team in the SEC. A lot of pressure, and he has been rock solid lately. Just some really good minutes, and then the Justin Apeson game. Apeson out there,
how about that? Yeah,
5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, just stuffing the stat sheet. Right when that's what you get here. Late February, it feels like March. You get those games where the unexpected step up and will you to a win. Georgia needed all hands on deck. Didn't get much out of Sompto. The other guys step up, and Tyron Lawrence becomes that other scorer that they've so desperately needed. He puts 14 on. That's only the second time in SEC play that Tyron Lawrence has scored in double digits.
How about that?
Did you believe that?
That's
only
wild,
the second time in SEC play, Tyron Lawrence plays 25 minutes. He hits 2 threes, makes all his free throws, has an assist, a steal, 14 points. Probably the best game of SEC play from Tyron Lawrence. So just incredible there. Patrick Young had a great tweet late last night. He goes, moral of the story for any team, not just SEC. Moral of the story for any team. You have to play a complete game to win at this point in the season. The first 10 minutes of the game, the Gators defense was not in existence. And they did come back, right? They did storm all the way back and take a lead by just a point, I believe. But just goes to show. You don't show up ready to play. You're not focused and locked in and intense on defense for the first 10 minutes of the game, and that just cost you. That cost you the whole game pretty much.
Well, contrary to popular belief, too, I know people are picking on Florida defensively, but I keep saying this. Like, let's not just take a sample size of one half or whatever minutes in a game, guys. Florida's a top 10 defensive team in the country. They are still 7th in the country in defensive efficiency this year. And I know people like to say, well, look at the Kentucky game, now look at this game against Georgia. Like, come on. Like, they have been fantastic on defense this year, and it just so happens that, again, they had a bad stretch here where you cannot afford to do that in SEC play. I don't care if you're playing a team like Georgia who has struggled offensively or not. You can't give them the kind of looks that they were getting because, again, even a team like Georgia who has struggled with consistency shooting-wise, we brought up the numbers, especially the turnovers, they're going to make you pay if they get those opportunities time and time again, and that's kind of what happened early. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Florida has itself to blame for this because you can't put yourself in that kind of spot early on. But also, like, give Georgia credit because we said it was the same thing with Oklahoma, where we're like, at some point, does this just kind of break you as a team? And we wondered if that was going to happen with Oklahoma, but they bounced back, beat Mississippi State. We wondered if that was going to happen with Georgia, where they had just lost 4 in a row. 3 of the last ones were by double digits, even though they didn't play bad at Auburn. You just didn't know. And so for them to come out, get that kind of start, when you had that adversity where Florida gains a lead, like you said, Max, they could have just completely been like, oh my gosh, is this going to be one of those that, like, we look back and like, this is a fireable offense. Like, is this going to be what Georgia fans are calling for if they lose this game? But find a way to win. And as I mentioned, the work is not done here because they are not in just with that win. They've got to keep finding ways to win at least, I think, a couple of these games down the stretch. Like, they have to win 2 of the final 3, in my opinion. We'll see.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello.
Airport runs. Glad that one's done. Hey, hats off to Georgia. I think last night when they blew that lead, we all thought that was going Florida's way. 10 of 18 on threes. But here's the thing. How much time did we spend in the offseason talking about Silas Demary, Max? Like a lot, right?
No.
People did.
Really. Not enough.
Well, I mean, like, I would listen. That was like, if you listen at other places, he was everybody's hot pick as one of the rising stars in the SEC. And I think that was something we had around. Remember how good he was at the end of last year. He never really quite made the jump this year. Like, last night might have been his best game of the year. And I know Georgia's not going to go 10 of 18 from 3 most nights, maybe not even again once. But my point would be this, is much criticism as Georgia's got for its offense, and rightfully so. You saw last night there's another gear to this team that if it kicks in, they can be more than a little dangerous.
Yeah, I think with Demary, I mean, he scored 16 or more in 5 straight games now. And I think, I mean, look, there were a couple games in there where he barely came off the floor. He played 40 minutes against Missouri, 40 minutes against Texas A&M, 38 against Auburn. So, like, I think he had a little bit of a stretch in the middle there where, I think that's going to happen against, really, I mean, he had a stretch where they're playing teams like Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, and so forth, and maybe he's not having his best games. But I think overall he's had a good year. I think that the turnovers at times, like we said, I mean, people are going to point out those back-to-back games, right? And I feel like there's still some people out there just harping on the Marquette and St. John's games where he turned it over 18 times in those 2 games. But really, I think he's still the guy. Obviously, Asa Newell is, sort of the person who's made everything go. But to me, like, if they're going to make the tournament here, and let's say they have a chance to win a game or 2, it's going to be because of him. Because I just think he has a different skill set offensively than anybody else on the roster, just because they're different players, Demary and Newell. I mean, they play different positions. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how he finishes the season because he's played really well these past several weeks.
Yeah. Also, Holly brings up a good point. She asks, was this Alex Condon's first game back? Yes, it was his first game back, but it was the first game all year with the 4-man front court, the Chinyalu, Condon, Henlockton, Tommy H. It was the first game of the year with all 4 of them. So, little bit of, maybe a little bit of rust trying to figure out the right splits and stuff like that for Golden and the staff. But, Chris, to your point of, kind of does, yeah, Big Gator EJ.
Sometimes simply put, that's just how it works sometimes, Big Gator EJ.
Well done.
So
you led me right to my point, Big Gator EJ, because does Georgia, have another gear? I would push back on that. This is only the second time all year Georgia has shot north of 50% from 3.
Yeah.
The first time they did it was on November 30th against Jacksonville. They shot 14 of 24 for 58%. Last night, 10 of 18 for 55%. That was actually the first time in conference play Georgia has reached double-digit threes. So I think it was more of a, hey, you got your one of your best nights all year from 3 on a night when you really needed it.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wouldn't disagree. My point is Georgia's defense gives that team a pretty decent floor. And if you're just good offensively, they can beat a lot of people. And last night they were great offensively, right? I don't think that's that's a top 10% outcome for Georgia. You can't bank on that. But I mean, it is part of what they can do every now and then. And if they do give you a great performance, they can beat a team that everybody and their brothers having trouble beating right now. Tyron Lawrence, I felt like I watched the injury when it happened a few weeks ago. I can't remember what it was, but you mentioned him earlier. He came back from that last night. That's another kid that's not really had the kind of year in terms of the scoring that we thought he would. Now, look, it's a more crowded backcourt at Georgia than it was at Vanderbilt. He had to be the guy because they just didn't have a lot of guys down there. So that's a different role. But that's another thing to consider. Like Tyron Lawrence is a guy that has been the go-to guy and hit some big shots at the ends of games when he played at Vanderbilt. That's the thing that Georgia's got. We hadn't seen him in 3 games because of health. But, Max, back to Florida, I thought the point that you made, we have not seen this team play together, right, with Condon and Hanlogden and all those guys. And it's not just he's coming back off the bench and, Hanlogden and fitting in, and they hadn't played together. They hadn't played together in the off season, period. So I do give Florida a little bit of a pass just because you got a lot of parts now to try to fit together, and you've not practiced probably with all those parts, more than a number of times you can probably count on one hand, I would guess.
And you only got a few minutes not a few. It was a little bit over 10 minutes from Chinyelu fouled out. He couldn't stay on the court for an extended period of time and get any rhythm. Is in out. So it was just, EJ says, rotation was wonky. But still, if you are projected a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament and you're favored to win a game by 7-8 points on the road, you should be winning that game. And Georgia got it done.
Yeah, I mean, Florida can still get back there. I mean, they host A&M on Saturday. They're at Alabama. They host Ole Miss. I mean, if they were to win out, I mean, Florida's going to be right there with a chance to still get a number 1 seed, just because those 3 wins are going to be pretty significant from a metric standpoint, especially if they were to win at Alabama. So, so I don't. Yeah, like Max said, I mean, you can't play like they did for the first portion of that game and feel like things are okay. And rotation or not, I just think that's you can't get down 26 points. But like we said too, give Georgia credit. They played one of their best games of the year, probably their best offensive performance of the year, in my opinion, given the opponent. Sure, we could say they scored 102 against Jacksonville, but it's just completely different. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia made shots. They took advantage of the Florida mistakes early, and sometimes that's what matters. And like I said, now for Georgia, great job. Got a biggest win of your season at home.
Yep.
Now you've got to hit the road for back-to-back games, and there's where the issues potentially come in. Can they build off of this? Can they go win at Texas on Saturday? Can they win at South Carolina next Tuesday? Those are dangerous games because this team has not been the same on the road. So, like we said, I think if you're a Georgia fan, you don't want this to be for naught, right? You want this to mean something. And the only way this Florida win is going to put them in the NCAA tournament is if they take care of their business that they should in a couple of these other games, which is beating South Carolina on the road and beating Vanderbilt at home. If they lose at Texas and they do the other 2, they're going to be fine. But I don't feel like they're in a situation right now where they can go lose both of these road games. They just can't. So that's 1 down. Now I think you still got to get at least 2 more to feel like you're safely in the field.
So before this game, let's just rewind to this time yesterday, okay, guys? Who was everyone's the hot national champion pick? Florida, right? Everyone was saying.
I mean, we picked them to win the SEC tournament. We put the Southeastern 16 Kids of Death on them in the gut bracket.
Okay, ready? So with that established, outside of the SEC, Who's the hottest, trendiest Final Four pick right now?
Well, it's got to be
St.
Houston.
John's? St. John's?
What do you mean?
Houston
you mean
or St. John's?
Oh, okay. You think
Right,
it's
just
St.
like
John's?
a
Or
trendy,
Duke.
like a
Duke.
trendy pick, right? Georgia's
Duke's
not trendy
trendy.
against those two teams.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Two of the teams that if you look, just kind of you take a national, consensus. Who's a sneaky Final Four team? Who are people really liking? A lot of people are saying St. John's. A lot of people are saying Florida looks like a machine. 2-0 for the Bulldogs.
I think St. John's. I think people are going a little too far with the St. John's love, but that's a Ricky P thing.
People love them.
Oh,
well, they played in the Garden a couple times. The national media is all up there to cover it. I mean, that's been a spotlight program lately. I'm not saying they're not good, but that definitely factors in.
All right, let me just quickly address this one, Tyler. You don't get the Houston love. How did they pass Florida and the Vols for Lenardi when we won at A&M? I am not sure because I feel like this has happened for a couple of years in a row where people just sort of dismiss Houston's capabilities. Last year, remember, it was the injuries. If they don't have the injuries, they're probably they're probably in the national championship game. That's just how kind of good they've been. And I think if you watch this team play, I don't know how it's impossible to not be impressed. They're not winning games 100-95, so maybe that's where it comes in. But they completely just shut teams down, and they're a top 10 offensive team. They're good everywhere. So I'm buying the Houston love. We're going to see Tyler in the gut bracket. Tyler and I we're gonna fill out different gut brackets. I might have Houston going to the national championship.
Houston didn't have Tugler or Arsenault, or Shed, and Shed went down in the tournament, so they were down like 2 starters, maybe 3. Well, Arsenault's kind of a 6-man, but still, they were so banged up last year.
What is the stat? Kelvin Sampson is the winningest coach in college basketball since either 2018 or 2019.
I believe it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Moving
move on. Okay, let's talk about we'll go Alabama first because
Ooh.
there's not a lot to talk about here. What do we say? 111-73. They get the win over Mississippi State. And if you're wondering why, and I know people were joking about, well, look at you guys, had them 5 in the power rankings. But I think we've said it a couple times this past week or so. I said it yesterday. I think I said it the day before. Let's not all act like we'd be shocked if Alabama is the last team standing in the SEC. I know there's a lot of Auburn fans in here. I know there's a lot of Florida fans. I know there's a lot of Tennessee fans. But let's not kid ourselves when we say that if Alabama is playing at the top level offensively that they can play, I don't know that there's anyone out there that can beat them. Now, we've seen that if they're not playing at that level, which is not going to be every single game, sure, there are teams that can beat them. But, man, when you watch a performance like this and you're looking up and saying, take that team out of the NCAA tournament by the Elite Eight, how am I going to drop them somewhere? Like, no, I'm just going to keep picking them. Now, to add to that, Max, I have never seen this stat that we have been hung up on for weeks now with Mississippi State.
Ugh.
And you see Alabama come out and go 22 of 45 from 3. 22 of 45 from 3. Not the free throw line, which that would be absurd. 22 of 45 from the 3-point line. You think their game plan was, hey, guess what? Mississippi State does not do well defending the perimeter. So we're going to go out and take this team from coming into this game being ranked 299th in the country in 3-point defense. Does anyone want to guess without cheating where they are now after that game?
I've cheated, and it's ugly.
Well, of course you have. That's no surprise. Max, have you cheated?
No.
You cheated too?
They were what before the game?
They were 299.
I'll say like 325.
They're 332. They dropped 30
games into the year.
Spots. They dropped 33 spots after that game last night. Like, that is just an absurd number. So, I mean, my goodness. And look, I know everybody in the chat. I knew what the response was going to be. I'm not saying Alabama's going to go 22 or 45 every game, but let's look at the points that Alabama has scored in these recent games, right? 111. And we say it's not going to happen every game. Are we sure about that? 111, 96, 98, 85, 103, 85, 90, 88, 103, 102, 94, 88, 107. They've had a couple games in there where they've not hit a certain number. So I get it. I get it. But my goodness. So
they've got the FM radio dial offense.
Yeah. Woo.
You ready for a stat, guys? This is a stat right here. This is a stat. Alabama's 22 three-pointers against Mississippi State are the most ever by a team in a win over an AP top 25 opponent.
Yeah. I have a stat for you. Alabama shot 58% on twos, 49% on threes, hitting 22 of them, and 83% from the line. And yet, per possession, not the best offensive performance in the league last night.
Yeah, that's
we'll
crazy.
Get to that in a minute.
Mark Sears is playing some of the best basketball we've ever seen from Mark Sears. He has just been absolutely outstanding. He's up to number 6 in the nation in Ken Palm's Player of the Year standings, or not standings, rankings. He has just been absolutely outstanding. So here's a funny little snippet here. So yesterday, you guys know I like my little prop bets, and as we're getting to March, I'm starting to dig the feet in a little bit and start to have a little bit of fun. I did a prop bet yesterday. It was two props. It was Mark Sears to have 4 assists. He ended up with, I think, 10, something like that. Yeah. So that was fine. The other leg was Aiden Holloway to make 2 threes. Now I'm sitting there with about a minute and a half left in the game. Alabama's got 20 made 3-pointers, and Aiden Holloway's only got 1. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Alabama's going to set a record for made threes against a top 25 team. And the one guy that I picked to hit 2 threes is not going to hit them. And he got a few in the last minute there. But just incredible from Mark Sears. Philon's defense was great. And I'm sure Blake's going to talk about our good friend, Mr. Chris Youngblood.
Well, of course, but Big Baller Brad, I mean, Alabama, I think, has also got a bit of a wake-up call sometimes defensively. Now, again, they're still going to give up points. Let's not – I mean, the way they play, they're going to give up points. They're going to play high-scoring games. But a little bit more of that defensive consistency is what they want to see, right? And like I said, if you're comparing the two teams potentially last year and this year, I mean, the numbers are just much better defensively than were a year ago. The offensive numbers are still ridiculous. And so I think that's what we have to just keep looking at. Now, I will bring up a point here. Someone, let me find it. We got a lot of chats we got to catch up on here.
Yeah.
Sorry, we are way behind chat. We'll get to this shortly. But now Kyle says, you know what? When we start to look ahead, they may not score 70 against Tennessee. But it's all about the matchups. And I think that's where, we kind of figure out and see how this is all going to play out. We'll get to that this weekend. But, yeah, I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't sit here and look at this Alabama team and say, if they get, the same kind of scenario where they're playing teams that are just not in that same stratosphere offensively, and those teams are trying to simply just use defense to stop them, I just don't know how many are going to be able to do that. Like I said, Tennessee may be one of those teams that can. We've seen that in recent years. But for most teams out there, I don't know if that's going to be enough to beat a team like this. You've got to have the complete sort of package, I feel like. And that's where, look at the games they've lost recently. Auburn, Missouri, those teams feel like that. They feel like they kind of are the complete package. The Ole Miss game was the outlier. Let's not act like that's been the norm for Alabama. Complete outlier this season. So, man.
Well, anybody that thinks they're going to hold Alabama to 70 points, with all due respect to Tennessee and its phenomenal defense, Alabama is tempo proof. I mean, just look at the Ken Palm page.
Ole Miss held them to 64. I mean,
64 possessions.
Oh, you said points.
I said tempo proof. I thought that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
I've got
Okay.
dogs screaming in
Sorry.
my ear.
Okay.
Well, but I mean that's kind of a, like we were talking about Georgia shooting 10 of 18 from 3. That's not something you're going to expect to see most nights. I think that's what that was that night. It just sometimes stuff happens, right? Like Tennessee scoring 45 at Florida or whatever it was.
Here's a quote from, this is an interesting quote. This is from, oh man, I'm sorry if I'm wrong on this. I think it's Charlie Potter's article for Alabama. It's a quote from Nate Oates about practice. I thought this was interesting, guys. So this is Nate Oates. We've tried to go a little lighter, get the guys' legs back. Typically when we go Saturday game, Tuesday game, the only day off we'd have on that week would be Wednesday. But we gave them Sunday off also. We tried to go really light on Monday, and I think it's paying off. Our guys' legs are a little bit more fresh. Youngblood looked great. I thought Sears, Labaron, and Grant. I thought Sears and Labaron looked great. I thought Grant, with him not practicing on Monday with the shin bruise he had a lot of great effort. So it looks like you're starting to hear that a little bit. Multiple coaches in the SEC are starting to say, yep, we're going a little bit lighter right now, just trying to get the legs back, get freshened up, got a little bit of bumps and bruises, and then you're seeing them come out, extra energy, more effort, a little bit more fresh. Looks like Nate Oates is doing that right now with the Tide.
All right. Alabama 23-5 on the season. Now 12-3 in the SEC. A tremendous performance. So yes, I just think that, like I said, bet against them at your own discretion. I think they're going to be a team down the stretch here, and this is where we find out. Right? Look at the last 3 games. They're at Tennessee, home against Florida, at Auburn. There's not a tougher stretch in America than the one that Alabama is going to play over a 7-day stretch from March the 1st through March the 8th. So we're going to find out which of these teams can control them. Like I said, can Tennessee? Tennessee's had success doing that in recent years. Tennessee has been kind of the team that's been able to hold them down based on their defensive style. Can Florida do it? Can Auburn do it? At Neville. Last time around, tremendous game, as we saw. So that's going to be another fun one. So Alabama going to be a must-see TV these last 3 games based on the matchup for sure. So we'll see how the Tide finish, and probably, let's say they go 0-3. Then they probably got us right where they want us heading into the NCAA tournament. They're going to say, you know what? Going to let all the doubters come back in, and we're just going to go make another Final Four run. We'll find out by the Tide. Mississippi State, I don't even know what to say. They got LSU at home, Texas at home, at Arkansas. Their seeding is taking a bit of a... And I know it's like, well, it's just a loss at Alabama, but we said you can't lose by that many points. That's where it starts to hit you in the seeding a bit. So, yeah.
Still the most confusing team in the league, putting Kentucky aside for injury reasons.
Well, they're trying to stay out of the 8-9 game. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah, you better pick it up.
So,
well, now that becomes more interesting now with Houston taking another 1 seed, right? So the SEC will be able to slide into an 8-9.
Yeah.
Well, the other issue they're having is some of their out-of-conference wins are losing some luster.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Again, they host LSU on Saturday. That's obviously a game they need to win. All right, let's talk about the Tigers of Missouri. What do you know? 10-5. I think you guys probably saw the stat. First team in the last 25 seasons. Winless in 1 year, 10 wins in conference play the next year. Making history are the Tigers once again as they get a 101-71 win over South Carolina. The Gamecocks were trying to keep that momentum going from the Texas game. That did not happen. You talk about a team that's been scoring some points. Missouri, now in back-to-back home games, 110 and 101 against 2 teams on completely opposite ends of the SEC spectrum here. So that kind of shows you that this team's playing pretty well right now. You can go further than that, right? Oklahoma, they scored 82, Georgia 87, 110 against Alabama, 85 in that road loss at Arkansas, 101 against South Carolina. It's like, where do you even start here? Shot 66% from 2, 58% from 3, 83% from the line. Only turned it over 7 times, forced 15 turnovers. South Carolina went 2 of 23 from 3 for, is that right? Is that 9%? Holy cow.
0.87.
Thank you, Mr. Mathematician.
0.087 to be
Thank
exact.
you.
Sorry.
I'm going to say, okay, that's
Yeah.
all right.
Less than
Good
9.
call. Okay. Now that we've established that, and I'm sure that was very important to make sure we established here. The Caleb Grill show continued. Everybody else scored. What do you say about the Tigers? A dominant performance. They're up to number 12 in the net now. Number 12 in the net.
It's the highest that Missouri's been rated on KenPom in 13 years.
If you can excuse me for box score reading, because I know anybody can do that, but go look at the KenPom page. It is unreal. I mean, you look at this and you're almost like, is this a mistake? A 69 possession game, and they get 101 points last night. And it was everybody, guys. You look at the offensive ratings for their top 9 guys, everybody was 116 or over. Mark Mitchell was their worst offensive player last night among the guys who played more than 10 minutes. And it goes back to what I was trying to say earlier in the week, like in terms of just offensive versatility, where you can get points from, guys that can do it consistently, they are as good as anybody in this league.
Here's a pretty powerful quote from Dennis Gates in his post-game. Reporter asked Gates about what it felt like going from winless in conference to a 10-win conference year in 1 year. Gates said, "Things like that aren't possible unless you're given an opportunity. I think everybody else got fired. They could have possibly had a 10-win season, but their administration, their board, they didn't give them an opportunity." Boom. Message received from Dennis Gates. Just got to be given a chance.
Well, I think Dennis Gates is a pretty good coach. I know people are getting on me about the net thing. Come on, guys. It's a long-running theme here on the show. I don't care about the nets. The net's the biggest joke there is. Did you see that Duke jumped Auburn in the net this morning? First time that's happened in a gazillion years. So, why? Because Duke beat one of the worst power conference teams in history in Miami last night by whatever. So, Duke's margin of victory moves them up to number 1. Who cares about the net? I'm just joking with you guys. I'll tell you what I do care about. Dennis Gates and what he's done to turn this program around at Missouri. I mean, listen, we said last year, it's one of those things where you've just got to have enough players to be able to withstand the inevitable injuries that you're going to get in a season, like those kind of things. Guys are going to miss some games, all that, and they just didn't have any margin for error last year. But now it's like they've completely flipped that to where they have so many guys, and we keep pointing this out. I mean, they just play so many guys, and there may be a guy that plays 7 minutes, but I guarantee you that 7 minutes somehow is going to positively impact their chance at winning the game, right? And so it's not like one of those where sometimes we bring up the stat, man, they've got, 10 guys who are averaging, 16 or more minutes per game. Doesn't have to be that way with Missouri. Like, they just have guys who, like we talked about, even the Josh Gray minutes sometimes. We're like, oh, man, Josh Gray only played 10 minutes or 8 minutes or something. But I guarantee you in those 10 minutes, he did something that was a huge boost to his team during however many possessions that was. And we just have all these guys like this. I mean, Max, our guy, coming into the season, Jacob Cruz, right? We kept talking about Jacob Cruz, and we're like, man, this guy is going to be a lot of fun to watch probably in a Dennis Gates system. Early in the year, minutes were very sporadic. Like, you just didn't really know exactly how much he was going to play. Well, now look at the past. I think it's either 9 games, something like that. I mean, he's played pretty much, 10 to 16, 17 minutes, I think, something like that, pretty regularly. And so that's not a lot, but it is something where you're seeing these contributions. He's hitting a couple threes here. Look at the last couple games. 2 of 4 from 3, 2 of 5 from 3. 1 of 1, 1 of 1, 3 of 4, 2 of 7, 3 of 7. So it's like these guys, and this is why I keep saying Missouri is the ultimate team, because they've all embraced their roles. They all know, sure, they could go, some of these guys could go anywhere and play 30 minutes a game. No, like this year, these guys have embraced the idea that, okay, I may not play 30 minutes a game, but I'm going to embrace what I can do within this particular team, and that's why they're sitting here at 21-7 and have a great chance to make a run in March, because you got a very, very unselfish team. It's one of the most unselfish teams, out there, right? Just because these guys don't care, and Dennis Gates has brought that up many times about how they're just in this to win games. And you don't always get that buy-in in this era, and we've seen it before. But, man, they are bought in this year.
Well, Blake, I'd say it goes beyond that. Marcus Allen, Boateng, Burns, and Aiden Shaw were all consensus 4-star top 100 kids. And those guys aren't playing a major role most nights.
No.
Well,
but when they do play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One name we haven't said is Ant Robinson, who is found his swagger. Ant Robinson has found his groove. He's doing mid pull-ups, step backs, because his game is his defense. He's 10th in the nation in steal rate, one of the best on-ball defenders in the nation. But when you have Ant Robinson also giving you 4 double-digit performances in the last 5 games, okay, now you're getting the defense with some offensive production. Oh, and by the way, he tied his career high with 8 assists and only had 1 turnover. So you got all this. You got Mark Mitchell, you got Cruz, you got Grill, you got all these guys hitting threes, flashy plays. And then every day there's TP, Tony Perkins, and Ant Robinson just chopping wood. We say, not we say, but some say there's the cliche, like depth is kind of overrated. Well, when you're seeing Ant Robinson peak now in late February, you're seeing Cruz, like Blake just illustrated. Cruz is just as confident as can be. How much do we attribute that to? Every single day in practice, you're going against a full starting lineup, basically, of another 5 guys, and just ultra competitive. So, maybe when it comes down to, crunch time and you just need 5 guys on the floor, maybe that's when you can say, okay, well, you want your 5-6 guys. But over the course of the season, with the depth that Missouri has, we're seeing these guys just thriving right now, when a lot of other teams, like Nate Oates just said, are having to kind of reel things back in practice.
How about that? Bates is going to be the first 50, 40, 90 guy in the history of the program. How about that?
Wow.
That's wild. All right,
man.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to catch up on some chats if we can. Chris, go ahead now. We're going to add, and then we're going to catch up on some of these chats.
I have a question about Robinson. Was there an injury there? Because they went through the spell where they lost 3 of 5. And it correlated very strong with a big drop-off in performance with Robinson. You talked a minute ago, Max, about coaches lightening the load. I'm just curious, like, if his improved performance over the last 2 or 3 weeks from where it was when they had that losing 3 of 5 spell, was that correlated to health or just maybe getting his legs back under him the last few weeks?
No, it was a combo of playing like Mississippi State, Tennessee, A&M all in a row and super physical, and he couldn't stay on the floor too long.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, foul trouble.
Yeah.
He got in foul trouble in some of those games. So,
but his offensive ratings were not good either. Like that's independent of foul trouble. So I think it was more than just that. But yes, he's right, because it was 4 fouls, 5 fouls, 4-4-2 in that stretch.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to some chats here. We got a lot to catch up on. So keep sending in your chats, everyone. We'll get to them. We've got some from half hour ago. We're going to pull up now. All right. Shout out to John, $5 super chat. What a great time to be a basketball fan. War Eagle. That's not me saying it. It's John saying it. Don't want to, play favoritism here. But that's how it works. Shout out to Blake. Also excited for the Tigers tonight, thanking us for the amazing SEC content. What a great job by Georgia. Yep, I'm sure Auburn fans do appreciate Georgia doing a little work there for them. All right, let's get John also wants us on a regular time slot on the SEC network. Listen, John, make the call. Make the call right now. Call up the offices and say, here's what we want. No, we appreciate you, though. Another $10 super chat from John. I'd like to say thank you to the hosts and the cast of characters in the chat. We do have it's like a movie cast in the chat right now. Like we just, we'll put maybe we should start doing some end credits. Like, just come up with different characters, and we put all you guys in the end credits. Basketball isn't too popular. And of course, Alabama makes me feel not so lonely, passionate with the game. Listen, that popularity is rising, as we know, in the state of Alabama for the bouncing of the ball in these games right here. So, Big Gator EJ $4.99. Yeah, I mean, it's just a quad one loss. It's not listen, we've been saying that. Whenever Texas lost to South Carolina, I'm like, guys, I know we want to absolutely lose our minds over this, but it's not actually that bad of a loss. I know South Carolina was winless, but that's the difference this year. So that's kind of been the difference. All right, let me clean up some of these so I can see we actually need to get to next here. John also want to know why my chair is so big. Because, John, how much we sit in these chairs these days, you gotta sleep in this chair sometimes. So yeah. Shout out to Rylan here, appreciating the show. We appreciate that. And Quinn's got a $50 super chat.
Quinn,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, Quinn, take an aim at the Florida fans. Quinn versus the Florida fans, I feel like, is the ultimate, kind of fun we have here. We always appreciate Quinn's contributions to the channel. Summit Cola, aka Maxwell. Question: are you just an idiot? Well, I don't want to stop there. Or is it absurd that Kentucky is a 3 in the bracket and Missouri's a 5? I know I have gotten that reply on Twitter more over the past however long than I've ever gotten, maybe from a single topic. People cannot figure out why Kentucky is a 3 and Missouri's a 5. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I will say that I think the reasoning is understandable on a certain level, because Kentucky has a lot of great wins, top tier wins. Not to say Missouri doesn't have great wins. They absolutely do. But Kentucky has a lot of those. I mean, remember, I don't have it in front of me, but we've run off the list of wins they have, okay? Kentucky is 8-8 in quad one, Missouri 6-1 or 6-7, excuse me. And look at the wins Kentucky has of those 8. Like, they're all just monster type wins. And you have to always remember, I don't know how the committee does it. I don't know what their formula is to figure it out, but it is absolutely going to be factored in that Kentucky has not been at full strength. And if they were to have both Lamont Butler and Jackson Robinson back for tournament time, which we're expecting they're going to, that is going to be factored into their seed. It's tough with this team because they've had so many guys miss so many games that I feel like it's impossible to know exactly what to do with them. But that is why Kentucky is still in a good spot from a seeding perspective, is because they have a couple things going for them. Big wins and the committee factoring in. They've been missing key players for some of these games that they've lost. And yes, they've won some of those games too, but that's still going to come into play with the Cats.
Blake, I'm going to pull something up real quick here from Matt Harris, which basically he addressed that question right here. Now, I apologize if it's a little small. Bear with me. But the tweet says, why is Mizzou on the number 5 line? Teams in front of them have more quality wins, a better win percentage in quad 1 and 2 games, and don't have as many quad 4 games. How do you solve it? Win your next 3 games, which all fall in quad 1, and root against Kentucky, St. Johnny's, Texas Tech, Purdue, and Zona. And Matt, here's the graphic. You can go on Matt Harris's page to find this. But Matt also concludes this point with, this is the trade-off of scheduling lots of quad 4 games to build some continuity and chemistry. No such thing as free lunch. So that, if you want to dive into this, Matt J. Harris, 85, he's got that graphic up for you, Mizzou fans.
Yep. Spells it out, because Missouri, I think, has 12 wins between quad 3 and quad 4. I think Kentucky has, like, I don't know. I don't know the number. I was looking at it earlier, but Kentucky has 9, I think, in that range. So it's, again, I don't think it's that. I think you're looking at probably these two teams like they're getting closer together now, where Missouri's getting closer to that 4, or maybe they are for some people right now. Kentucky's probably getting closer to that 4. So I just think you have to always keep that in mind. So, anyways.
Yeah, plus Missouri's biggest win out of conference, and really only one of significance, is losing a lot of luster by the week. Kansas.
Yeah. So, nothing you can do about that. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. So, all right. Sam says, "Where the hell's Jay? These two suck. Give me Jay or give me Death." Listen, Sam, you keep joining those live streams, okay? We are gonna, Max and I are gonna say, you know what? We're gonna send you off to school here. You're welcome to just go join the other streams. All right. We'll let you know the ones we're on, and then that way you don't have to hop in. Okay. Anyways, we love Jay. All right. The next gut bracket. We said we were going to wait till after the midweek games because, well, now we'll see where the Gators wind up. We'll see where maybe some of us have decided to put Georgia in the Elite Eight now. We'll find out in the gut bracket. Maybe Missouri's going to win the national championship. So
we got to get to a little bit of Vols Tigers.
Yeah,
we're going to get to it in a second. I just wanted to catch up on some of these chats here. All right, one more, and then we're going to, that way we're caught up and we talk about Tennessee. This was the least notable game of the evening. Do Thero's out for Arkansas tonight.
Yeah.
Is this Texas game a must-win for Arkansas? Yes, I think so. Now, we say must-win, right? I mean, they could go out, lose this one, win the last ones, and then go win a couple in the tournament. They're fine. But these are the kind of games you have to win if you're a bubble team. Because you're a bubble team not just in your own world. You're a bubble team with all these other teams that are on the bubble. So if you can beat one of them, that gives you a nice boost. So there you
go. That line opened Arkansas by 5.5. Thero announced out. It's down to 3.5. So I think it's warranted adjustment.
Yeah. There you go. So Sam says, I feel like a lot less bracketology has been done this year on the channel. You're right, Sam.
We'll get there.
I mean, we probably won't. We're going to do it once or twice. Yeah, it's not going to be more than that. I mean, I feel like we're just, at this point, we have a lot of games to talk about. And so,
correct me if I'm wrong too. Like, you can quantify NCAA tournament teams a lot easier, like the wins above bubble stat and stuff like that didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. Like, some of it, you can just run an algorithm and it sort of spits out something that's hard to argue with. Like, I mean, we eventually get down to this, and there's not a lot of mystery at the end, right? Not a lot of variance in people's forecasts here and there. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of tie the bubble stuff into this a lot more now, and I feel like everything else, everyone else is so locked in that I don't know that there's a lot of change week to week as much as there used to be, especially in a year like this for the SEC, where like we were in danger. Oh gosh, team loses. Oh no, there's a 7 seed to a 10 seed. No, that's not really the case anymore. So, anyways, all right. Tennessee 65, LSU 59. Boy, we had a lot to catch up on there. But that's why you guys are the best. Max, this was kind of the game of the evening where you kind of figured it would look like this. We said we were not. What did the spread end up being for this game?
Wasn't it 10?
Yeah, that was too high. And you just kind of felt like Tennessee was going to get a decent performance here from LSU. And look, let's keep in mind too, like, scoreline a tad bit, deceiving. Tennessee was up 15 with like 4 minutes to go. But I think you kind of figured that this would be a game like, I didn't really expect Tennessee to come out and score 80 here or anything. We said LSU can be a little stingy at home. They just could not, like most teams against Tennessee, just couldn't find enough offensive rhythm to ever really put themselves in a position where they were going to win this game. Tennessee wins here by 6. Not surprised that LSU covers the spread, but this was kind of really Tennessee's game throughout.
Yeah, Tyler makes a good point here. You could tell Gainey was sick.
He wasn't into it.
Gainey wasn't himself, and I thought Akpara played one of his better games, and he was banged up this week. But you get your 17 offensive rebounds. That's what Tennessee does. 4 of them from Milicic, 4 of them from Meshack. Man, I can't say enough good things about Meshack. Wasn't a pretty one by any means. Was not pretty. LSU has been tough as nails at home over the past few games, and we've been talking about it. When we did our preview, we said, This is an LSU team that, hey, they're playing a lot of freshmen going against this turnover forcing Tennessee defense. That LSU actually had one less turnover than Tennessee did. I really think Matt McMahon's got something here. I think it's more building towards next year, though, gaining that confidence, gaining that momentum. Not a great win, but you got one, and you'll take that in late February.
Yeah, I think for Tennessee, it was a take care of business game. How many times have they run that lob pass from Zeigler to Akpara for dunks this year? Like it's like you feel like they put that out there enough that you know it's coming, and yet they always know exactly when to run it, and they get points easily, which is a credit to your point guard. I mean, it was a take care of business game for Tennessee. LSU's been playing well at home. It's given a lot of teams fits lately. So I don't think last night was some kind of a black mark on Tennessee. But Max, you said something I was thinking about while I was watching the game. Like if this was college basketball 10 years ago, if you're LSU, it's a lot more interesting because you're going, man, we got a good bunch of freshmen and we're bringing those back next year. And we got a little something to get excited about, even though we've got nothing to play for other than maybe we go to Nashville, we win a game or two in an upset and have a little fun with that. But like in another era of college basketball, and credit to LSU for kind of figuring out, giving Matt McMahon another year, saying we're going to make an effort with NIL. But like their freshmen have all, 3 or 4 of those guys have had big moments at times this year. In an older era, you were looking at that and going, hey, we got something to build on and look forward to when these guys are sophomores. Now it's like, well, we hope they're back, and then maybe what? And I think that part of it kind of sucks for LSU and a lot of teams.
Yeah, I just think I can feel it. You can sense the momentum that LSU is building. It was kind of the switch Matt McMahon made. It was the lineup switch. Putting Jai Bailey at the 4, going small ball, stopped playing 2 bigs. The offense wasn't there with 2 bigs. He goes small ball. They sacrifice some rebounding. Tennessee almost has 20 offensive rebounds, but the team's scrappy. Jai Bailey at 6'5", he plays bigger than 6'5". He's a scrappy defender. You got Vyctorius Miller back and healthy. He had some injury problems. I'm not trying to say, LSU's going to, they've got at Mississippi State, at Kentucky their next 2 games. They're probably going to be a double-digit underdog in those 2. However, I'm just trying to say, like, LSU's playing tough. I feel the momentum. I like what I see from LSU.
Well, let's see how that momentum continues. They're at Mississippi State, at Kentucky, and home against A&M to finish the season because those are all interesting games for different reasons, right? Mississippi State, as we said, been so up and down. Kentucky, that's a tough road game, assuming they're going to be at full strength minus Kirk Reese at that point next Tuesday. And then you host A&M, who we said before, LSU didn't play that bad at A&M the first time around. So I'm curious to see how LSU finishes the season here. I mean, look, they're going to be underdogs in all those games, but I'm curious to see if they maybe pull an upset in one of these down the stretch here. I wouldn't be surprised by that. And then, of course, Tennessee, as we mentioned, they're going to host Alabama on Saturday. Then they go to Ole Miss, then host South Carolina. So you would feel like this is a chance for a strong finish for the Vols here. But, next 2 games a little tricky, maybe, at Ole Miss. You never know. That's a team that can defensively lock you down sometimes. And the Alabama game, as we said, on Saturday, we'll see which one wins out there, although there's a stat I have when we do the prediction. There's one that usually wins out in this game between these 2, but we'll talk about it.
All right.
Ty asks, is Matt McMahon on the hot seat? No.
No.
Coming back. They'll be back next season.
Probably the opposite.
Unless
reloading, buying into him.
Unless they lose by 100 the last 3 games or something, I think he'll be back. All right, some other stuff here. Zach wants to know how much money for Max to wear an Auburn hat. $100, Zach. That's all it takes.
Nice.
That's all it takes.
Nice.
Carter, $5 super chat. You guys worried at all that 1 or 2 SEC bubble teams might get bumped out because of the bid stealer during conference championship week? This is what no one's talking about. Everyone's acting like we're just looking at the bubble teams in the power conferences. Someone's going to steal a bid.
Yep.
So we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about these things. And so that is something. And that's why I keep, last night, I know everyone's back like, all right, the SEC is going to get 14 teams in now because Georgia won. I'm like, I don't think it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to steal a bid. These teams still have to play each other. One of these teams is going to go on a run, and you guys know what's going to happen. SMU is going to win out, and they're going to go win the ACC tournament just because of what I've said about them, and that's what's going to happen, isn't it? We know it is. So, but that's what you have to add in, is that someone's going to steal a bid somewhere, and that's where those spots start to shrink a little bit. So,
if you're on the bubble, you are a very big Penn State fan tonight at Indiana. If Penn State can catch Indiana in a letdown spot and knock off Indiana, it's a bad loss. Would probably drop them.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like that's what it comes down to. Is you're definitely rooting against Indiana, North Carolina, SMU, Xavier, who else? Yep. Villanova, George Mason, Wake Forest, Nebraska, teams like that. So,
see, the thing is, 2 weeks ago, BYU was not projected to be in, and then they rattle off 4 in a row, and now BYU just stole a spot in the matter of a week.
Yep. All right. Let's see what we get to here now. John asks, how large of a super chat do we need to stop being interrupted by ads? Listen, John, we don't control that, man. That's a platform thing. And as Elliot says, yeah, if you get YouTube Premium, I think you can send those out the window. But yeah, we don't control when those hop in. So Quinn, $9.99 super chat. Y'all ready for Nashville? Quinn, is one ever really ready for Nashville? Are they ever really truly ready? Yes, the SEC tournament coming up in a couple weeks. I'll see some of you guys there, I'm sure. All right, one more here. Gavin, does Tennessee jump Alabama as the number 1 seed with a win Saturday?
Ooh.
Maybe. Probably. But I'm not sure. Maybe, probably, I'm not sure. Take whichever one of those answers you want.
It's like the magic 8 ball all in one answer.
You can tell the confidence is very high with that. But I think there is a decent chance that would happen, just because I don't feel like there's a lot that's necessarily separating them right now. But I don't know. I mean, if you're just looking at the quads, Alabama's 10-5 in quad 1. Alabama's 7-0 in quad 2. Man, they got a lot of good wins. Tennessee 9-5 in quad 1, 4-0 in quad 2. So, be close.
Words getting around, Blake. Words getting around. Free throw contest.
Yeah. If we were more organized, we'd do like a package deal where it's like, a special Southeastern 16 purchase. You get, for $10, you get the free throw contest, you get a free hot dog, and I don't know, like something else, right? Like, but the free throw contest. That may do better numbers than the SEC tournament. I don't know. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying.
Lots of questions in the chat and comments about my hat. My hat came from Lids. My kids bought it for me for my birthday. It is a phenomenal hat. Fitted hat, fits well. I don't think they make these anymore, though.
Well, of course not. Of course not. It's a Chris Lee special. So, there you go. All right. Carter wants to know, Blake and Max, they're going to be punishment for the loser of the free throw contest. Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
24 hours in a Waffle House.
Yeah. How about that? What about the 24-hour Waffle House consequence?
Every waffle's an hour off.
Have I gotten a reprieve from the free throw contest?
Chris, I think the betting numbers have put you so far behind.
Oh, I haven't shot a free throw since I don't even know when. And I wasn't.
They've taken the money line.
Shoot them. Yeah.
They've taken the money line bet off the table for you. Like it's not even an option.
Spare everybody's eyes and the rims.
So Max is still a heavy underdog, but he likes to embrace that role.
I've been practicing a Josh Gray hitch at the top to try to
like
draw
that.
a lane violation. Yeah.
I like that.
New form.
Yeah. Still, if you guys want to win money, come on. You know who you're.
Did you see this?
You know which horse you're betting on. Oh man, now I don't know if I can go that far, Gavin. I think that's a little too much. Ty says, wait a minute. 24 hours at a Waffle House, that's a reward. What are you talking about here? It's not punishment. That's a great day.
That's a
great
fine way to spend a day.
24 hours.
My wife has never eaten at the Waffle House.
Oh, my.
How does this happen?
How's that even possible?
Here's an idea. 24-hour in the Waffle House, plus it's got to be live stream. Like, for members only. If we really want to kick up this membership tier, all you have to do is pay $3.99 a month to get the 24-hour Waffle House live stream. So, yeah, see, Willie knows what's up here. You guys act like I'm just going to have some kind of perfect form. What if I come out there and I'm like, oh, granny shot style? You have no idea. So, you have no idea. Just saying. All right. We're out of here. Smothered, covered, and what is it? You guys will know. What's the Waffle House
Oh,
one?
My gosh. How do I
what
not
is it?
know this right now?
Smothered? Come on, you guys got to tell us. Why do I not think about this?
This is
Scattered? No.
Nuts.
Somebody's going to know in the chat. They're going to know. So, look, and let's not discount this idea, too. I may not miss a free throw. I may hit every single one of them.
What you guys are underestimating is the mental warfare that's going to be
you have no idea.
In place.
I've not shot a free throw in years. I'm so confident. If you put me out there right now, I'm going at least 95 of 100. At least. No question. It's a muscle memory. That's all it is. So, that's it. Here you go. Scattered, smothered, covered. Ooh, that's it. That really gets you. So.
Like, who was it was like a month or two ago. Who was was it Deshane Montgomery and Otega Owe or something when they were shooting free throws? They're just talking so much fast right next to each other. That's going to be us.
Yeah, that will be. Max is going to be on the line. It's going to be like yeah. Yeah. Oh, my. All right. We're out of here.
Back tonight?
I won't be out of here for long. I've got baseball. We've got a baseball live stream coming at 10:30 Central.
Oh yeah, basketball.
Oh well,
tonight.
Out of here. I'm not out of here.
Wait a second. We're talking about tonight.
I know.
TBD on the reaction tonight. We'll let you guys know. We're TBD. There's 2 early games, I think. The schedule just always kind of throws me off a little bit, but I think there's 2 early games. I think it's Auburn and Ole Miss, and then A&M Vanderbilt are the early games. The late games, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. Man, tonight's a huge slate. Mm-hmm. So my guess is we'll be doing something tonight. So,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that tonight, baseball coming up here in about 20 minutes. We'll set the live stream for that. It'll be me, Alfred, Graham, and yes, Sam Smith, Jay Greason will be on it.
Jay.
So, yeah, we're doing that. 4 days a week during the week, plus maybe some stuff in the weekends. We haven't quite figured weekends out yet because we have ball games, but we also need to take a breath every now and then. But anyway, we've been doing live streams. Go ahead.
Hold on a second. We were so into the basketball talk.
Oh,
that I'm like, wait a minute. We're over here talking about Waffle House. We're talking about all this other stuff. Hang on a minute. We got to talk about bracket bids because they got that free pick'em contest or that auction draft league. You can enter it with your friends, family, or coworkers. Everyone starts with the same bidding dollars. It's up to you to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure the teams you think will go the distance, which Max and I in the gut bracket tomorrow, I guarantee you the teams have changed. Choose from multiple scoring models, including the upset bonuses to reward the bold picks. Track your teams with live in-game scoring. Watch the standings shift in real time. The further they advance, the higher you climb. For league play, use that promo code SE16 for 40% off. SE16, 40% off. Download the Bracket Bids app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. But if you're saying, you know what, I've already signed up at Bracket Bids. I'm already locked in for March.
Yes.
And you're thinking, listen, I live in an area where sometimes in the mornings I get a little hungry.
Ooh.
And yet I look around and there's no Waffle House near me. And you're thinking, man, how the hell do I get to that Waffle House?
Mm.
You might have to move. to somewhere that does have a Waffle House. And that's why you can call our friends at Sanders Moving. You call them up right now, call Ted R, and say, Ted R, I'd like to move to the closest Waffle House. Yes, I don't want to live near the Waffle House. I want to live in the Waffle House because I want to be there for the 24-hour live stream for the loser of the Southeastern 16 free throw contest. He'll say, you know what? I've heard about that. I've heard about it. It's a big deal. May outdraw the SEC tournament in ratings. That's what I've heard. I told you, Max, people are talking about it. So you can say, you know what? I've heard that you, who are formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving, although if you're talking to Ted R., he's still going to be Ted R. Sanders. So he's not formally known as, the company name is formally known as Ted R. Sanders Moving. And you can say to him, you know what? I've heard you're a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. He'll say, yes, that's correct. I've heard your team of professional movers is focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. He'll say, yes. And you say, well, I've heard that whether I'm moving across town or across the country, that you, Sanders Moving, have me covered. He'll say, that's right. What if I visit you at tedrsandersmoving.com? Can I set this up? And he'll say, I think that's a great idea. So it's all covered right there. Smothered, covered, scattered. It's all there. Nice. With Sanders Moving.
The first ever Waffle House tie-in. That was history right there.
Tremendous.
Great stuff. All right. Chris, wrap us up.
Yeah. Well, I'm on to baseball here in about 15 minutes, so we'll have that live stream coming. Hope you guys will catch that. Again, we're doing baseball coverage at least 4 days a week and some on the weekends. We always find stuff to talk about. So if you're into baseball, you'll love it. If you're kind of into baseball, we'll make you love it. Come join us over there. And, of course, more basketball talk tonight. For Max Barr, Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching SEC basketball content here at Southeastern 16.